Oh, hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry, I didn't see you there. Hey, so you guys came over from the other video? Oh, you're new here. Oh, okay. Listen, either way, I'm Chris. This is Making Nerdy, and this episode we're going to talk about how I take a raw print to something like this Bat Trooper helmet, all the way up to the stage just before I print all the way through sanding and priming and bondoing and all that other fun stuff that goes to make this ready for paint. So after this video, you'll be ready to go into painting and every other video that I make. So stay tuned, guys, and make sure, guys, if you're already here, give me a like on this video, and if you're new here, please give me a follow. It means a lot to the channel. That being said, let's jump into this, guys, and we'll take you step by step. All right, guys, so I'm talking to you from inside my sanding booth area. This space is where I do my sanding and my painting. If you see some other videos, my little spray booth, this is where I'm at. This actually made this little chamber. If you don't have something like this, I'm fortunate enough to have a garage where I can have a little station. So if you don't have this, it's okay. If you have a yard somewhere, that's where you're going to be doing the work. So today we're going to be working on the Magneto helmet from Rivals. I just got this off the build plate, and we're going to use this as our work for this video. So as far as like the sandpaper goes, you can start with 80 grit. Yeah, the 80s here. That's for like knocking down a lot. So I normally just jump up to 180. Yeah, 180. I got 180 here, and then a 220 that's supposed to be here, but the thing fell off. And then 320. Sometimes I'll just jump up to 320 from the 180. I can do the jump. What I learned the hard way is making the printer do the work for you. I know you're trying to like, speed up the time on the printer or cut down how much filament you're using. What's worth more is your time. Spend the extra $1 or $2 it's going to be to have a better print, a better file come out that has maybe, I've switched over to 0.2 layer heights. I was doing 0.28, but still getting a lot of layer lines, a lot of layer lines to fill in. But going down to a 0.2 has yielded a little better mass, where doing the sanding, I can sand through this a lot faster, having less layer lines. So let the machine do the work for you. It's there, As far as doing the work, your time is more valuable than having, trying to save an extra buck or two on the filament. So do yourself a favor, have a better print to start with, and that's where you're going to save a lot of time on the work. Every helmet that you're going to have, unless you're going to print at like 0.12 layer height, which is obscene, you're going to have, ridges there. Let's see here. You see that? The jump up the stair effect? You're going to have that dome effect, whatever you do. And then, of course, you're going to have your seam somewhere, because it's round, you're not going to have like an edge to go off of. So we're going to be knocking all this down. For a good print like this, I could probably get away with sanding it at 220. Right now I have 180 and 320. I could probably do 320. Yeah, I'll do 180. A light 180 on here because I don't think I have any more than 220. And get yourself, make sure you have a palm sander. If you don't have a palm sander, it's okay. I know a lot of people have like the small ones also now, which is better in your hands, but I gotta work out a little bit because I haven't gone to the gym very often, so using palm sanders helps me sometimes. And also, guys, please make sure you guys are being safe. Wear a respirator, wear your glasses, because you might pick up a little nicks, or you might pick up little nicks or stuff coming off the print, and it'll fling you in the eye. And the last thing you need is, a shard of plastic in your eye. So please make sure, guys, be safe. Goggles and masks so you don't breathe in all this chemicals and plastics and everything else. That being said, let's do some sanding real quick, and I'll show you what it looks like after the first layer of sanding. I forgot to mention that if you're using a palm sander, make sure I don't stay in one spot for too long, because it will melt the plastic or bring the plastic up, and as opposed to smoothing it, you're making it rougher and then having to go back and redo some spots. Right now, this part right here, this little portion, this took about less than 2 minutes to sand all this, and it's really good. I can get good lighting here. Focus here. You don't see any ridges, you don't see any valleys here. It's pretty solid. I have to finish over there, but as far as, for the most part, it's a pretty solid thing. I'm gonna go here, and I might not even have to do any bondoing for this. I might just be able to do maybe just a little bit for the top for that, to get that roll nice and smooth. But for the most part, this is pretty good. I would just probably just do the filler primer for the top and everything else. Filler primer for the top because it's pretty good. Again, the reason why I'm able to get this finish and so quickly is because having the printer do the job for me. Let the machine do the work, right? So let's go back and finish sanding the rest of this. If you guys got this far into the video, make sure you give a big thumbs up to this video. All right, there we go. We got that was the rest of the helmet. Took about almost 7 minutes, so 7 to about 9 minutes of sanding to get all this. I got some lighting in here now, so yeah, you can see there. So for the parts that are tight here, I'm gonna go ahead and just get a sandpaper and hand sand this. Again, if you don't have a palm sander, you can go ahead and hand sand the whole thing. It's okay. I mean, you work what you got. I happen to have some tools, so I'm using them to my advantage. Also, I noticed that the tip here, I don't know if you can see that, the tip here, when it printed a little off, so I may have to probably rip that off and then re-glue it in place and proper, because before it falls off or breaks off in the process or something along the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, and then we'll get to the Bondo / first coating of this. Before we go on to the Bondo coating layer portion, I want to touch on the, you can see there, I wound up actually using my 3D pen and wound up building it up a little bit. I glued it, and then I used the little 3D pen to secure it in place, and I sanded that down, so you can see that there. I did it in a different color red, so that way you can see that, that's there. And then also this helmet, with the helmet in the game, there's a big slash over here, but there's no slash in the model, so not a big problem. I'm gonna get my Dremel. I got the Dremel here, and I'm just gonna put a little gouge. I marked it, if you can see the red marker in there. I'm gonna gouge that out there really quick, and that way, and then once we gouge it out, we'll use the Bondo to fill in and smooth that out, as have a nice clean cut, as opposed to like a bunch of shagged plastic bits or whatever. So we're gonna do that first, and then we're gonna do Bondo. So as for Bondo, I use the glazing Bondo putty stuff, whatever. A lot of people like to use there are different things to use. A lot of people like to use the resin if you have a resin printer or have available resin at your disposal to do that. But then you have to kind of brush it on, and you have to kind of mix it with like some other additives to thicken it up, and then you have to get a UV light and then shine it on it for a little bit, and then once you've sanded it, once you've done it all, then you go put it into a big, depending on your property, you have to then cure it for longer, then wash it off and whatever, that, back and forth. In my opinion, it's not worth it. I just go ahead and use this. Yes, you do need to wear a respirator. Yes, you do need to have this in a ventilated area. If you if you have big divots, there is the brother version to this. It's a big jar, and that's a 2-part Bondo glazing. That's for like big divots, like your print's all messed up and you're fusing things together. But if you have a nice prop, a nice helmet that you can work with, use your glazing Bondo, and also clean that off, a little spatula to get these nice and smooth. Get these smooth out. It's going to help you do that. And with a glove, what I do is smear a bunch of this onto the prop, wherever surface I'm using, and then go ahead with the scraper, get it as smooth as possible, level that off, and then let that dry. Maybe like an hour or so, not even half an hour to an hour, let it dry, and then sand it, and then check the spots. Then after that, then we do the filler primer. So I'm gonna first gouge this out real quick, and then we'll do the Bondo and see what that looks like on this mask. Also, I forgot to mention, after you sand it, you're gonna have a bunch of dust and everything. To get all this off easily and quickly, what I use is I just use some alcohol, IPA alcohol, to keep this with me in my booth here. So after I finish sanding, I just give it a quick wipe, get a lot of the debris and dust off, and cleans off real quick and gets this ready for the Bondoing. And yes, I do the Bondo to the bare plastic, so it gets into those grooves, gets into those cracks, and then after the Bondo, then we do the filler primer. So let's go. So there's no real science to this. I just kind of picked a range, kind of marked it out, trying to go in like a V form to cut through this. And you saw I use the snips there. I got like a little piece of my eye for a second there, as I mentioned about the safety gear and everything. Even with the safety goggles on, I got like a piece that stuck in my eye. That was annoying, but alternatively, you can also use like a soldering iron to go in here and use some of the plastic. There I am again with the plastic trying bugging me in the eye. That was a pain. Yeah, so just be careful, guys, when you're doing this. So you don't get something in your eye. Um, there I go, pulling out some of the little nicks that are in the plastics, clean it up a little bit with the snips I have, and that's pretty much cutting all this in. And then I was mentioning you can also do a soldering iron to melt some of the plastic in there. This would have been a good method to do that too. But I had this Dremel here was next to me. It's my sanding booth here, so I decided to use that. All right, guys. So you're gonna get a bonus part of this video. Normally we wouldn't have to do this if we weren't changing the model, but we had to change the model a little bit. We add this gash here. You can probably, I'll throw up a picture reference to what I'm talking about. Now we got that gash there. That looks, I think, really cool with the gash in there. So, but you see here, there is a hole in there, so can't really do anything with that. We're gonna fill that in with some wood filler here. I got it on tube, which is really good because then it doesn't really dry out unless you leave it open and then it dries out and you have a chunk in there somewhere. And it's hard to get out. But otherwise, I use wood filler for some gashes like this or holes I need to fill in, and this will dry pretty quickly. That way you can get to sanding this pretty quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in, smooth this out, and then sand it down, and then we can finally get to the Bondo stage. Okay, let's go. All right, so here we are with the gauge. All right, here we are with the gauge. All right, here we are with the gouge all cleaned up. You got the get over there. You can see the gouge. How do I say? I don't know why I keep saying gauge. Anyway, gouge with the gouge there, with the filled in with the wood filler there. It's all cleaned up there. So it's nice gouge there on the helmet. And now we're gonna go to the Bondo. So we got the glazing Bondo. Okay, so when you're using this thing is toxic and smells, so I'm gonna put my respirator on and then we'll do a little voiceover for this next part. In an effort to speed this video up, we're just gonna jump through this and jump to the end of when I put all the stuff on. Oh, look at all that Bondo, sweet Bondo on there. And that's the end of that. Helmet all Bondo, well, at least the parts that I think it needed a Bondo. Again, if your helmet's good and you don't have a lot of valleys or Z-banding or anything else going on, pretty much just use Bondo for what you need. As far as this, I just did a second coat right here. You can see it's a little wet right there. Do a second layer over there for that top dome part where it'll have a lot of like steps for that part. So I just did that, and you can see the gate. Look, it's gonna look sick with that once this is all painted with the gouge there. Oh, also, make sure you do the bottom part, because that's gonna really you're gonna have all those jagged parts from the supports and everything else. So a lot of people tend to forget to clean up that and Bondo that or level that out, myself including. Also inside here and up here, it's going to make a difference between a good print to a great print, because a lot of times you'll forget to do those because you're just thinking and worry about the face and what people are seeing right there. But if you get up close or looking at it and stuff like that, you'll see they'll be nice and smooth versus the step up or the stair effect from the printing. And right now we're gonna let this dry, set this dry for like an hour or so, and then we'll come back and then we'll hit it with the 320 sandpaper, sand this down, make it nice and smooth, and then we're gonna go to the filler primer. All right, so it's day 2. I didn't get a chance to finish what I was doing yesterday on this. Normally I would go after doing all the bondoing, and then I would go ahead and clean it down and then start painting, do the
primer, the filler primer. I have either used 2-in-1 or filler primer, pretty much whatever's available at the store. Every time I go to Lowe's or Home Depot or any of the big box, any store that has pretty much this paint, I usually grab 2 or 3, or pretty much usually whatever's there, because I'm always working on a project, so it's always good to have those on hand. As you can see, take a look real quick. There's a lot more red than there was before on the previous clips, because looking at it, I went and double checked on some spots, and over here it's a little more liney here than over here. So I think I probably could have went here, but we'll try to get this with the filler primer. Again, I'm using Rust-Oleum. I know Duplicolor has a filler primer that's really good, but I don't have that big YouTube money yet, so Rust-Oleum is within my budget. So whatever's in your budget, guys, you use that. So right now we're going to go ahead and spray this. Don't go too heavy. Try to resist having to spray heavy on here. If you're going to do maybe 2 coats and then start sanding, but from after we do the painting to the next sanding, I let this sit for a whole day before I go ahead and do the sanding part. So this is the biggest time period in between before we can get to actual painting. So without further ado, I'm going to spray this real quick, and then we'll get this on the drying rack and then we'll get to the sanding part, and we'll talk about those different sandpapers that I use and the processes I use for that part.
Sorry about the door in the way there. That's my door covering the front. You get the idea, guys. Just give this a good spray. I wind up doing 2 coats on this helmet here. Usually I do 2 coats. I try to, save down with the Bondo, but it is what it is. The can costs $7 to $8 for the spray paint. Just spray it down, get that good coat on there, and of course you see me there spraying the bottom. Make sure I'm getting the bottom and underside ready for that. And this is what it looks like after 2 coats of filler primer. All right, guys. So here is the day after. This is with 2 coats of the filler primer. And you can go ahead and inspect this. This is when you're going to want to see if you're going to have to need more filler, if you're going to need just sanding. We'll just clean it up a little bit. It's up to your discretion if how fine or how smooth you want it. If you're okay with having some layer lines, and it's just for a quick prop or cosplay that you're going to not see up close, then you might be okay with some layer lines that pop up here and there. Or you may see some stuff, and we get zoom in here a little bit. See, it's a little finer here because that's where I had some more Bondo. But over here you can see some layer lines. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's some layer lines here. I might be able to just sand this down and it'll be smooth. So when you go ahead and inspect this as far as what you want to do, if you want to go ahead and do another layer of filler primer, and then you might want to sand. What you want to do is, when you're doing these things, is not to have to go back and forth too many times. You want to be able to get one shot of sanding, and then go to wet sanding, and then you'll be ready to start priming and painting. As for me, I'm gonna give this one more coat of filler primer, because there's some ridges and valleys here that I know won't really buff out, but with another coat of primer will do the job. And then I'll go ahead and hit this with 320 sanding, and then we start the wet sanding. We are up to the final stage. If you can get here close, my hand's all dusty because I just sanded this. I went from a 220 to a 330. Was it 320? 320, I think. I sanded all this down. Now this is ready for the final sanding stage of wet sanding. So what I do with wet sanding is I start with 400, then I'll jump to 600, and then if I get crazy for something like it has like metallic paints, more like something like a Duplicolor or like a metallic, where you're going to see any little bumps or any little ridges or valleys, then I'll jump over to 1,000. But normally I stay between up to 600. Depending on how the print is or what the print looks like, I may jump up to and do 1,000. Now you can either do this in a bucket and just fill this with water, and then just have some water in there where you're gonna dip your sandpaper in there. Make sure the sandpaper is good for wet stuff, wet sanding. Some of them will say wet and dry. Some of them will just say dry only. Make sure you can use it in the water. Go ahead and sand this all down. Go through your grits. Once you've sanded the whole model, then go ahead and clean this with some Dawn soap. Dawn soap and water. Let that sit and dry. And that's pretty much it. All right, and that's what it'll look like after you've wet sanded. It's going to dry. I always give it another day for it to fully dry, because last thing you want to do is when you get to go paint it, the paint runs because you have a wet spot or there's moisture built up. I always let this dry for a full day, come back, and then I can easily go ahead and get started with the painting. So this is it. This is the final stage. There's nothing more. This is the end of the video. But one final tip. Before you start painting the outside and everything, flip it in the inside once this is dry and give a coat of paint on the inside. Doesn't matter what kind of paint. Doesn't have to be filler primer. Just to clean up all this overspray and everything else going on in here. I always give it a spray of whatever excess color that I'm not using. Maybe a different type of paint than the outside. I just give it once inside, let that dry, and then I'll go in the inside. So it kind of really finalizes the whole thing. That way it looks clean, it looks crisp if you're going to sell it, or if you don't, you just want to show it off. It doesn't look like a hot mess. Oh, hey, you guys are still here? All right, video's over, guys. Just go back to the other video, pick up from where you left off from that last video. And if you're new here, obviously, now you know what to do, how I get my helmets, all my props ready for paint. So thanks, guys. Thanks for stopping by. And make sure you give that a like if you haven't already. What are you doing? Let's go. Like, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.